Testing, testing, 1, 2. Welcome to Lakeside Stadium. Cool.
Let's go. Let's go.
value supporter of the club, Christos.
Let's go.
Sunday afternoon, NPL Men's Victoria football at Lakeside Stadium coming your way on what is a fine Melbourne afternoon as Avondale face the prospect of an opportunity to take a major step towards a second premiership crown in 3 years. If they win today, they'll go 2 points clear of Heidelberg United on top of the NPL Men's Victoria ladder with just one game in the season remaining. They take on a South Melbourne side who, having been knocked out of the Australia Cup in midweek and having won the Doherty Cup before then, their season, well, there isn't a whole lot still to play for, at least in terms of sporting achievement. Their ambitions this season now largely limited to giving some opportunities to some younger or lesser sighted faces in the team, as well as disrupting the finals preparation of two of their great rivals in Avondale and Oakley Cannons over the next couple of weeks. Today, they host Avondale in what is their last home game of the season. Avondale, as mentioned, with a lot on their plate, a lot that they could achieve this afternoon in taking a major step towards being crowned premiers. Oscar Rutherford with you for this afternoon's game, and as Noah Langerak's whistle blows, we are underway at Lakeside Stadium. The final of two concurrent fixtures taking place on this Sunday afternoon in the penultimate round of NPL Men's Victoria football in season 2025. And with Heidelberg having dropped points against Oakley Cannons on Friday night, the door is wide open for Avondale to not just return to the summit, but potentially move a couple of points clear. Well, if they are to do so, they've got a much changed South Melbourne opposition that they're facing today. Sinisa Kahadzic, with not much left to play for in terms of their league position and their cup commitments having ended, has rung the changes, 10 in fact, from the midweek Australia Cup team, which was knocked out by Auckland here at Lakeside. Campbell Dovison, the Doherty Cup hero, is the only survivor in what is a name full of faces who have featured semi-regularly throughout the season, but getting their opportunity today against high-quality opposition in Avondale and potentially next week as well against Oakley. For South Melbourne, in goal is Jake Charleston. Number 2 is Braden Spink. 6, Lucas Inglese. 7, Andy Brennan. 8, Cooper Halfpenny. 10, Ren Nagamatsu. 14, Alex Menelau. 17, Ethan O'Sullivan. 19, Andrew Mezzaruni. 23, Morgan Evans. And 26, Campbell Dovison. So a number of academy products, players who have featured predominantly from the bench, have been in and out of the starting lineup today, or throughout the season, I should say, getting their opportunity today. They're taking on an Avondale team who also featured, of course, in the Australia Cup round of 16 in midweek. Zoki Markovsky's team were able to pick up the win in their game against Apia Leichhardt. A really entertaining contest out at Gully Reserve. And with the fixture congestion that Avondale are facing, they've made 5 changes to their starting lineup. Jackson Courtney Perkins, Christian Trajewski, Stefan Zinni and Manny Agwek, all who started in midweek, are on the bench this afternoon, whilst Matt Reid is out of the matchday squad. That makes room for George Ott, Kerr, Blake Carpenter, Kalilu Kamaru and Sian Cuba all in the starting 11 this afternoon. There is a little bit more stability in the Avondale lineup. Thomas Manos still in goal, whilst Aidan Bryce, the man with the armband, still at the heart of defence. Alongside Yite Towns, Stefan Valentini, Emlyn Wellsmore and Luca Tavir keeping their spots in the 11. Ball sent inboard as South Melbourne look to threaten Thomas Manos' goal, but the shot stopper does well to claim. Here's Blake Carpenter. Made a major impact coming off the bench against Apia Leichhardt. And George Ott brought down. So Avondale, you'd consider them favourites despite being the away team here at Lakeside today. Just considering how impressive they've been this league season and with their opponents having not a whole lot to play for with a second string 11 out there. But we've seen this South Melbourne team has improved leaps and bounds in the second half of the season. And with a lot of hungry young players trying to make their mark, can't imagine this will be a walk in the park for the Avengers. See some calls for a high boot, and Noah Langarak agrees. Foul committed there by Ethan O'Sullivan, one of a number of youth products in the South Melbourne starting 11 tonight. Here is Carpenter using his captain Bryce. Looks to the other side of the field. Stepping forward is Emlyn Wellsmore. Ott attempting the clever back pass. Doesn't pan out as he'd hoped. And that ball through, asking too much of Kerr. So South Melbourne survived the first Avondale foray into their defensive third. This, as mentioned, one of the 2 games happening in the top flight of Victorian men's football this afternoon. Kicking off at the same time as the game at Churchill Reserve between St Albans and Dandenong Thunder. That goal kick from Charleston very nearly causing himself some more trouble, but getting back to clear was Lucas Inglesi. Now Carpenter will take the throw for Avondale. Chance here for Valentini, fires the shot at Charleston. And from close range, that was tricky to keep hold of, but the man elevated from the under-23 squad mid this season, Jake Charleston, does well to claim the ball. South Melbourne happy to just take some territory and push back the Avondale attack. It's been a promising first few minutes for the home team. They've managed to avoid getting pinged back in their defensive third. Once again, Carpenter is the man charged with the responsibility of carrying the ball forward. George Ott showing for the ball again. This time Carpenter opts for the more conservative approach as Avondale look to probe their way through the South Melbourne almost 2 banks of defensive players. Now Andy Brennan, one of the senior figures who is in the lineup today, charged with the responsibility of the captaincy, Andy Brennan. Wasn't too long ago that these 2 teams met at this very venue. bit over a month ago in the Doherty Cup semi-finals. South Melbourne marked their revival this campaign, well and truly ousting Avondale and getting their way through to the Doherty Cup final, which of course they went on to win against Heidelberg United. Andy Brennan, one of the scorers in that game, as South Melbourne really put Avondale to the sword. This is O'Sullivan with the throw. Sends it towards Brennan. Bryce and Towns work it out between themselves. And the pass to Luca Tavia doesn't get too far. Nagamatsu, the touch just a little bit too heavy. And now Cuba charges forward for Avondale. Once more, South Melbourne defence well positioned. Valentini wrestling with his young opponent, O'Sullivan. They'll have to shake hands and accept that one was a 50-50 outcome, you'd say. O'Sullivan doing enough to repel the Avondale attack, but the Avengers maintain possession. Wellsmore making his trademark runs into the middle of the park. And now Kerr uses Luca Tavia. Just escapes Tavia's control. And the long ball forward will be easily worked out between Manos and Bryce. This is Carpenter. And now the game perhaps settling somewhat. Avondale spending some more time on the ball, and Luca Tavia turns one way, then the other, to get clear at least initially of O'Sullivan. Valentini letting the ball run onto his right boot. Uses the support of Tavia, and now Ott fires the shot. A fizzing effort that, once again, Jake Charleston deals with fairly comfortably. That Doherty Cup semi-final at this venue, the second meeting between these two teams this campaign. The earlier one at Avenger Park much earlier in the season, back in round 12. Well, it was a very different South Melbourne at that stage of the season, and Avondale wiped the floor with them, really. A 4-0 win. What was one of a number of low points for South Melbourne in the first half of the campaign. Really is remarkable how far they've come under Sinisa Kahadzic. Nagamatsu getting it out to O'Sullivan, who attempts to launch it forward, but Yute Towns was there to close down the space. Dovison just lost track of the ball as Kerr tracking back, reclaims the ball for Avondale. Uses Kamara all the way back to his goalkeeper in Manos. And once again, Carpenter is the release. Sullivan arriving late. And that's why Noah Langerak blew his whistle and is just having a chat to the young fullback. That release ball met by Morgan Evans. Looking like a back five shape for South Melbourne, with O'Sullivan playing the wing back role on the right. Valentini pulls the trigger from a long way out, and that one never likely to trouble Charleston. Of course, Avondale will be very keen to pick up 3 points today, just to put them in a really advantageous position heading into the final round of the season. A draw, though, would be enough to return them to the summit. They join Heidelberg on 56 points. That would be enough to guarantee a top 2 finish and also mean that their destiny very much remains in their own hands as long as they match Heidelberg's result. We see that sliding challenge coming in. An early yellow card in this game is not the best defensive effort shown there by Georgiot. A little bit overly ambitious trying to win back the ball. And that's why he's ended up in Noah Langerak's notebook. Morgan Evans is quick back on his feet. But yes, if Avondale are only able to get a draw today, level with Heidelberg on points, plus 3 goal difference ahead of the Avengers, ahead of the Burgers, I should say. And heading into a final day meeting with Green Gully, a Gully team with nothing to play for. Avondale will be certainly favourites heading into the final round to seal the premiership. That ball from Andy Brennan was well defended by the Avengers. Now Valentini returning the ball to Ott. Morgan Evans returning the favour with a sliding challenge of his own on George Ott. That one a little bit better timed. Heidelberg on the last day go to Port Melbourne to take on the already relegated Sharks. So both teams, both Heidelberg and Avondale, playing opposition with nothing really to play for. And of course, as the top 2 teams, you'd make them warm favourites in any case. A win today for Avondale would just make that a little bit more straightforward. Would mean a draw is very possibly going to be enough on the last day. Plenty of work to do if they are to pick up 3 points from Lakeside, as we see Kerr attempting to skip his way in behind the South Melbourne defence, but quick across and covering was Alex Menalau. Danger in the attempted clearance. It falls to the feet of Valentini. Valentini strikes, pulling it just wide of the post. You can see Stefan Valentini is playing with plenty of confidence. Certainly made his mark in the midweek Australia Cup game. Very much a player thriving on the big stage and in the big games, Stefan Valentini. Once again, Avondale attempting the flick-on header approach. Leaves far too much work to do for Valentini, who continues his chase-down effort on O'Sullivan. Just in the middle of the park, Sian Cuba is looking a little bit proppy. Here he is on the ball now. Still just limping a little bit as he continues to move in the middle of the park. Ball well won back by Evans, and O'Sullivan is crunched with the tackle. Here's Carpenter. Uses Tavir. Luca Tavir skips past a couple before turning it to Carpenter. Has Cuba in support, and that's where he goes. It's Jan Cuba from a long way out. And once more, it's a low skidded effort directed towards Charleston. But once more, the young shot stopper dealing with it very sensibly. South Melbourne, of course, beaten in the Australia Cup round of 16 by Auckland here during midweek. A series of long throws doing the damage. Not the first time we've seen that at Lakeside in recent years, although not too often that it's South Melbourne on the losing end of it. That was a clever attempted through ball by Towns. Cut out in the nick of time. Towns looks inboard to Valentini. Has Wellsmore in support. Back to Valentini. Tavir combining as well. Kerr. Just about won it off the toes of Campbell Dovison, but the South Melbourne numbers prevail. Important win back from Cuba, and he rifles an attempt at the goal. That one had a little bit too much height on it. Jake Charleston's goal certainly being peppered in the opening almost 20 minutes of this one. Keeping the lesser sighted goalkeeper busy enough up to this point in the game. Charleston making just the one NPL appearance this campaign. It's right back in the early meeting against Preston this season as Kerr is flagged for offside. Ball sent long for South Melbourne. Andy Brennan asked to contest aerially. There is Ott again, getting back and supporting the build-up, and Luca Tavir is crowded out. Attempted spreading pass by Mezzaruni. Doesn't get too far as Valentini resumes his battle with Morgan Evans. Turns his opponent around. It's a good ball as well. Just beyond the headed effort of George Ott. Stefan Valentini is getting himself heavily involved in the opening 20 minutes of this game. Almost came off there, but Ott's leading head wasn't able to connect with the ball. Ott looking to tee up Cuba. There to thump it clear was Spink. And under pressure was Cooper Halfpenny, but he did just enough to find a teammate. And the ball launched in the direction of Dovison. Kerr and Brennan do battle. And Mezzaruni does enough to win a throw. Valentini looks centrally to Cuba. Cuba has Carpenter, who returns it to the creative midfielder. South Melbourne at this stage of the season, just playing 4 positions, would want to avoid equaling their worst ever NPL finish. That was 10th back in 2018. They come into today's game sitting in 9th. St Albans still mathematically capable of catching them, as we see that lunging challenge from, I think it was Morgan Evans, fouling Stefan Valentini. So Morgan Evans becomes the second name in Noah Langerak's notebook as Kerr and Sian Cuba stand over this free kick. It's Kerr to deliver. Avondale head just about getting onto it, craning the neck as the second delivery into the box is dealt with similarly effectively by South Melbourne. Cuba continuing the attack for Avondale. His shot is blocked, and there are some appeals for handball. Never likely, considering the distance between Cuba and the defender. Mezzaruni trying to turn out of trouble, has Brennan in support. And now Mezzaruni trying to muscle his way past Taviri. Does so effectively. Continuing his run, Andrew Mezzaruni, but in the end, the weight of numbers was too much for Mezzaruni to get past. And Hayden Bryce, who got his head on that initial delivery from Kerr. He's back in his native position in the back line, helping restart the next Avondale attack. This one goes the more direct approach towards Valentini on the right-hand side now. Valentini goes to ground. South Melbourne have once again kept him at bay. This time Braden Spink doing some of the heavy lifting. Nagamatsu unable to control that ball, but might get another look at it in a moment. Once more, it's Avondale surging forward. Ott with the cross. Kerr was there. He got a boot on it as well, but the pace that it came at, wasn't able to direct it on target, and he skies it with the help of a deflection. And so Avondale will continue to mount the pressure with a corner delivery. See the players crowding around Jake Charleston. In-swinger sent in, it gets past the goalkeeper. And it's a goal for Avondale. Assistance flag indicated that the ball had crossed the line. And despite the desperate attempts to defend by South Melbourne, Avondale lead at Lakeside.
Goal for Avondale FC, number 22, Stefan Valentini.
Well, you can see him taking the plaudits and confirmed that Stefan Valentini was the player whose header had just enough on it to open the scoring for Avondale. And after a decent start to the game for South Melbourne, Avondale slowly turned the screw in this game. Valentini sneaking out the back from behind Kamara And whilst he's not best renowned for his heading ability, he's given Avondale the lead at Lakeside this evening. That goal taking Stefan Valentini to equal third on the Avondale scoring charts this season. His 5th of the campaign. Already on 5 coming into today were Luca Tavia and Stefan Zinni. That just in NPL games. Couple behind Yusuf Ahmed on 7, and all well trailing Avondale's leading scorer this season, Manny Agwek, who's on the bench for this evening's contest. May well see Manny Agwek introduced in the second half if necessary, although you wonder if Soki Markovsky might be a little bit conservative with his players. Here's Ott with the attempt, and a really good run from Sian Cuba, wreaking havoc for the South Melbourne defence, and George Ott off balance as he got the shot away. So the challenge now before South Melbourne to respond. They dug in their heels for the last 20-25 minutes of football. But there aren't many teams who can survive the Avondale onslaught that we've seen in this first half hour of action. Nagamatsu continues to toil in the front half. That pass for Cuba, he was being closed down by Halfpenny. Now Menelau spreading it to Dovison. This is Nagamatsu for South Melbourne. Unable to trap the ball. Avondale, the top scoring team in NPL Victoria this season. Haven't quite replicated their feat from a couple of seasons ago when they were last crowned premiers and then subsequently champions. They were really an unstoppable machine that campaign, finishing first just ahead of their opponents today, South Melbourne, before thumping Hellas in the grand final, 4-0 at Olympic Village that day. Morgan Evans is once again going to have to deal with the threat of Ott. Did well that time as O'Sullivan plays it central to Nagamatsu. And the physical attention from Kalilu Kamara, enough to prompt the referee's whistle. Nonetheless, that goal, that Stefan Zinni, or rather that Stefan Valentini goal, the 60th of Avondale's season. Kerr pinching it from Evans. Chance to double Avondale's lead. He's missed the target. A really good look for Avondale to grab their second in a matter of minutes. You could see Kerr's idea. The space just above the right hand of Jake Charleston. But the goalkeeper grateful to see the attempt with a little bit too much width and height to find the back of the net. Of course, there is some incentive for Avondale to pile on the goals today, not just for the sake of it or to rub it into one of their main rivals of the last few years, but as a way of making it even less likely for Heidelberg to overturn the gap between the teams on the final day of the season. In the event that Avondale were to draw against Green Gully and Heidelberg were to win, well, of course, the more goals Avondale can score today, the greater the goal difference deficit Heidelberg will need to make up. As it stands, that sits at 4 goals. More than enough time for Avondale to extend that lead. And they look likely to if the game continues to look as it has done for the last 20-25 minutes. Here's Kerr, who had the best chance to double Avondale's lead. That time the scrambling South Melbourne defence gets the ball away. The attempted combination between Menelau and Dovison doesn't get too far for South. Here is Bryce stepping up from his defensive line and hoping to send Luca Tavir in behind, but Charleston alert to the danger. Valentini trying to conjure away past Spink, has the support of the cross in from Tavia. Skims over a couple of heads, but Carpenter keeps it in play. Kerr now. Charleston is being kept very busy in this first half, as once again he comes to claim the ball. South Melbourne, Avondale head-to-head, one very much controlled or in the favour of Avondale, as we see once again Cuba with the chance. Nearly danger with the first touch from Spink. Inviting an Ott toe poke, but just enough in favour of South Melbourne to once again have their goalkeeper claiming the ball. Now Dovison charging down the left wing, looks inboard and picks out Mezzaruni. Avondale getting back in numbers to defend. This is the 22nd competitive meeting between these two teams, and of the 21 that we've played so far, Avondale have won 13 of them. So just the 7 for South Melbourne. And only one draw has ever been played between South Melbourne and Avondale. So neither team generally has been interested in sharing the spoils. And a chance here for Avondale to potentially double their lead. Brave goalkeeping from Charleston. And he got there just in time to deter George Ott. Well, it's certainly not been a relaxing 35 minutes between the sticks for South Melbourne's goalkeeper, and he's having to do all sorts of things to keep the Avondale attack at bay. Just the relentless pace with which Avondale play their football really is captivating to watch. You can only imagine how difficult it is to defend over the course of a half or 90 minutes. Dovison charging forward for South now. Gets the cross away. Kamara having to turn it behind. Well, we've seen those kinds of deliveries dealt with really awkwardly by defenders before, sometimes turned into the back of their own net, but Kamara does well enough to get it behind for a corner. So could this be a way for South Melbourne to get back level? They've been doing all the defending in this first half. A rare opportunity to threaten the Avondale goal. The cross in is claimed by Manos. That's good goalkeeping. In a crowd of bodies, but in total command of his penalty area was Thomas Manos. Menelau playing it back as South Melbourne spend a little bit more time in the Avondale half. Combination with Halfpenny works a treat. Nagamatsu hoping to release Dovison. And that will be the end of that spell in possession for the hosts. That pass back, putting Kamara under plenty of pressure. Cool. And then Wellsmore back to support and does well in the end to win a throw. Avondale just putting themselves in a little bit of a difficult spot, but the composure at the back looks to have averted the danger. Cuba attempting to collect the ball and charge forward again. Sullivan with other ideas as he sends it all the way through to the Avondale goalkeeper. Here is Cuba. Spreads it to Kerr. That pass, a loose one, and Brennan will look to take advantage as he plays it forward. Sullivan forced into retreat. You understood Mezzaruni sending it back to the wing back. Now O'Sullivan looks more centrally towards Nagamatsu. Brennan. Well, Campbell Dovison's been asked to do plenty of running by his teammates in this half, and as of yet, not a whole lot of reward. Should clarify, I did say earlier in the half that a point today would be enough to secure a top 2 finish for Avondale. That's not quite the case. Dandenong Thunder were to go on and win their game at Churchill Reserve. They would end the round on 53 points, so 3 behind both Heidelberg and Avondale. Albeit needing a whole lot to go their way, Dandy Thunder, for them to sneak inside one of those top 2 spots. Things are looking pretty okay, though, for Adam Pittock's team at the moment out at Churchill Reserve. So they've just got themselves a 3rd first half goal, so well on their way to claiming those 3 points. Nagamatsu gives chase. Manos coming to the edge of his area and booting it forward. This is O'Sullivan. Goes with the full switch to the other side. Sent forward by Inglese. It's been a good 5 minutes for South Melbourne. A real Avondale barrage for the majority of this first half, but they've just managed to step up from their defensive line a little bit more, control some more of the ball, playing it in the Avondale half. Certainly been a bit of a reprieve for the South Melbourne backline. And South Melbourne making a return to a play style of old with the long throw into the penalty area. Almost falls favourably. Noah Langerak's whistle brings a premature end to the South Melbourne attack. Final few minutes of this first 45. Avondale have been the better team and had South Melbourne on the ropes for portions of this first period. South Melbourne, though, showing that they still have some fight to give in the last few minutes. Avondale wouldn't mind a second goal just to ease any tension they might feel. Carpenter finds Tavia. Tavia attempting to pick out Valentini. South Melbourne opt to concede the corner. Toe poked behind, I think, there by Campbell Dovison. So that same position from which Avondale opened the scoring. They'll get another crack at it with a Kerr delivery. Stefan Valentini was the scorer last time. See if they can repeat the trick. This time Charleston with a commanding punch to get the ball away, at least at the first attempt. Kerr's cross right back into the heart of the box. Kamara was the closest to it, and attempting to pick up on the scraps was Valentini. In fact, it was Carpenter, apologies. But no harm, no foul for South Melbourne as they'll get play back underway with the goal kick. Menelau looks to go direct for Nagamatsu. It was a good idea, but Aiden Bryce, too high quality a defender to let that through. Now Luca Tavia charging forward, has support with a couple of runs. Almost too many cooks in the kitchen that time for Avondale. Got a decent consolation prize in the form of a corner. And well, after South Melbourne fought back for around 5 minutes, Avondale reasserting their authority as we head into the final minute of the 45. Kerr once again on corner taking duties. This time it's Bryce with the header. Had Charleston diving to his right. Thankfully for South Melbourne, bounces just the wrong side of the post. On the wrong side, at least, if you're talking from the perspective of scoring the goal. Wasn't to be. So South Melbourne may well get to the halftime break, just the one goal down. We'll see how much stoppage time they'll have to navigate in a moment or so. Fourth official, Max Hanlon, holding up the board to indicate 1 minute of first half stoppage time. So still time for Avondale to double their lead. We've got a corner from the other side now, Sian Cuba to send it in. Takes it short for Tavia. Tavia does enough to skip past Menelau. The cross in is good and headed away. The last line of defence. And will that be enough for South Melbourne to get to the break? Tavia trying to create one more chance for the Avengers has Bryce. And the powering run of Wellsmore thunders it towards goal. And as has been the case more often than not, though, this half, the attempt is off target.
Stadium. The score is South Melbourne 0, Avondale 1.
So that is half-time here at Lakeside Stadium. Avondale with the lead at the break. No doubt that they deserve it. They really piled on the pressure for a large period of that first 45. South Melbourne showing some signs of life, but this largely second-string 11 has plenty of work to do if they are to change the general trajectory of this game, as well as the scoreline. See if they're able to do so in the second 45 at the break here.
Let's go!
Welcome back to Lakeside Stadium. Second half underway as Avondale leads South Melbourne 1-0 after a first 45 minutes in which Stefan Valentini's goal put the Avengers ahead and on track to move one step closer to sealing a premiership crown for a second time in 3 seasons. Might have heard as well on the voiceover ground announcement that the goal scorer Valentini was withdrawn by Soki Markovski at half-time and replaced by his namesake Stefan Zinni, one of the players who scored in the midweek Australia Cup win against Apia Leichhardt. Stefan Zinni, and a very able replacement for Valentini in this second 45. See how much more use of his bench Soki Markovski makes in this second half with plenty of fixture congestion to deal with. Kerr charging down the right-hand side. Blocked off initially, so Wellsmore attempts a cross of his own. Here is Cuba. Picks out Ott on the turn and draws a first save from Jake Charleston in this second half. Charleston, who was kept plenty busy in the first 45, albeit more often than not making saves and interventions that you'd expect a goalkeeper at this level to make with relative ease, and Charleston did so. South Melbourne, with a much younger and more inexperienced team than we're used to, also have an extraordinarily young set of players on the bench to choose from. Some possible senior NPL debuts coming in the next 45 minutes or so. Some players who feature regularly in the youth teams, particularly the under-23s. Terry Papadimitriou, Thomas Killick, Shagor Birchmore, all options at Sinisa Kahadzic's disposal. We'll see, though, how this second half pans out. Avondale will, you'd think, be keen to grab a second goal just to give themselves a little bit more comfort after getting themselves ahead after the first 45. This is Kerr, uses Luca Tavir, another one of the goal scorers in the midweek game against Apia Leichhardt. It's also a milestone evening for Luca Tavir, and neglected to mention in the first half. This is 100th NPL appearance. Of course, has worked his way through the ranks since really bursting onto the scene at Northcote a couple of seasons ago, and has now established himself as one of the key creative forces in one of the best teams in Victoria. Bryce sending the ball forward, and Ott once again using his bottled body to protect the ball. Here is Ott with the ball between his feet now. Went to ground, but no foul. And so South Melbourne will look to get the ball out of their defensive third. Hoofed into the sky by Mezzaruni. And as Towns' header goes out for a throw, South Melbourne will be able to spend some time in possession. Braden Spink sent the throw up to Mezzaruni, and continuing the attack was Dovison. Nagamatsu had both centre-backs, Bryce and Kamara, to contend with. And now Bryce, having done his defensive work, charges forward through the middle of the lakeside pitch. Chance here for Avondale. Some skill on display from Luca Tavir as the cross came from Bryce, who remains very much advanced, having largely started this attacking move for the Avengers. In the end, forced to retreat to Kamara as Avondale look to spend some time in possession and once again weave their web, as they tend to do, moving the opposition in all sorts of directions and gradually creating holes to exploit in the opposition defensive line. Carpenter did well to ensure his team maintained the ball as Towns retreats to Bryce. beginning to the second half that's feeling ominously similar to the first. South Melbourne able to repel the first few Avondale attacks fairly comfortably, but over time, as Avondale spent more time in possession, more time attempting to find their way through South Melbourne, the quality of chance became greater and the chances themselves more frequent, culminating in that Valentini goal. Bryce attempting to send it forward, but cut out by Menelau. Menelau, who wrestles with Towns, and the more experienced man wins out for Avondale. Here's Cuba. Has some space to pull the trigger if he wanted. Instead, uses Tavir. Tavir does go for it. The defensive block taking some of the sting out of the shot. Avondale win back the ball. Now Stefan Zinni looking to make his first meaningful attacking contribution, but really solid defensive work. What looks to be Andy Brennan over there getting back and helping out his younger teammates. Cross sent in by Avondale. Diving header clear. South Melbourne continuing to repel the early Avondale advances. As we saw in that first half, they can maintain this tempo and kind of relentless surging forward for a really long time. Here's Kerr. Lost his balance at the pivotal moment. And Mezzaruni taking no chances as he looks to get as much territory as possible. It's not going to be much long-lasting relief as the cross comes back into the box at the target of Wellsmore. Retreating to Blake Carpenter. Sent inside, the attacking run continues, and Carpenter, what a week he's having. He doubles Avondale's lead.
Goal for Avondale FC, number 14, Blake Carpenter.
A brilliant run. The attacking move really started by the fullback and he continued to charge forward. And South Melbourne did not have an answer. 2-0 Avondale. You hear the rousing reception that Blake Carpenter's receiving from the Avondale inclined here at Lakeside. So we wonder what the approach is now from South Melbourne. They were never likely to win this game with the 11 that they've put out. Always going to be an uphill battle. Now 2-0 down. See how much attacking intent they continue to show, or whether it's merely a matter of damage limitation. And Glazy fires the ball into the feet of Halfpenny. Kerr copping a little bit of a blow from Spink, and that will eventually draw referee Noah Langerak's whistle, who will have a quick chat with one of South Melbourne's mid-season recruits. Braden Spink brought in from Gold Coast United, and he'll be let off with just a warning, but Kerr looking to be in quite a bit of discomfort on the sideline here. Some real concern for the Avondale attacker. Very nearly added his name to the score sheet in the first half, and we'll hope that that was just more of a stinger. We see he's getting some medical attention now. The break coming just after, of course, Avondale doubling their lead. See that the instruction from Zoran Markovsky was very much to come out on a mission in this second half, Avondale, and grab that second goal, give themselves that extra buffer. So we see Kerr having that leg assessed. There is, of course, some attacking reinforcement that could be introduced from the bench if Kerr is unable to continue, most notably leading scorer Manny Agwek. So we see the Avondale winger just testing out that right leg, seeing its weight-bearing capacities. Avondale will restart play with 10 on the pitch, as Wellsmore sends it high into the night sky and towards Georgiot. That touch just getting away from the Avondale striker. Looking as if Kerr will be good to continue. He's just waiting to move close to where the ball is and has now been invited back onto the pitch. Chance perhaps for South Melbourne as Dovison trying the release for Brennan. Very nearly picking its way through the Avondale defence, but Carpenter, having scored the goal, now doing his defensive due diligence. Really important win of the ball as the last line of defence. So Avondale on track to avenge their Doherty Cup semi-final defeat at this venue just over a month ago. That win for South Melbourne, a rare victory over Avondale, particularly in recent times. First win, in fact, in 6 meetings against the Avengers for South. And it looks like we'll be resuming normal service by the end of tonight. Indeed, the result does remain as it currently stands. It'll be a 7th home defeat of the campaign for South Melbourne. 8 if you include that Australia Cup loss to Auckland. Still not their worst ever record, that 2018 season. The only time in the NPL era that they've suffered more home defeats in NPL football. There was 8 that year in the NPL alone. Nonetheless, I think for South Melbourne, there's just so much positivity and optimism with how their team has managed to turn the season around. Things were looking really dim after the first couple of months of the campaign. The ride under Esteban Quintas coming to a real halt in around May of this year. But to get things back on track, as they have resurrected their league campaign, were even a slight chance of sneaking into finals just a couple of weeks ago. And of course, most notably, that Doherty Cup win. It's turned into a fairly successful year for Hellas, all things considered. Now, though, as we head into the final half hour of their final home game of the season, Alex Menelau attempting to deliver into the penalty area, didn't get the requisite height. Fall back out to the former Melbourne Victory man, Menelau. This is Brennan. Gets it onto his right, and then the cross is ricocheted into the penalty area. Spink will go all the way back via Morgan Evans to the goalkeeper. And well, understandably, you get the sense that Avondale just stepping it down a gear, having got that second goal. That pass back very nearly inviting a third for the Avengers, but Charleston got there ahead of Cuba. Here's Mezzaruni. Goes inboard to Brennan, and now Dovison the target. Wonderful sliding effort from Kamara. It wouldn't have mattered in any case with the offside flag raised. Nagamatsu, some aerial endeavours, releasing Andy Brennan, but with a whole back line to get past, it was never likely to end well for South Melbourne. Blake Carpenter again making the defensive intervention. Should mention as well that goal he scored a few minutes ago, his first of the season, his first NPL goal of the campaign, that is. Certainly has the potential to pose an attacking threat as well as doing his defensive work. And Andy Brennan's name will be added to Noah Langerak's notebook for that little drag back.
Double substitution for South Melbourne FC, coming off number 26, Campbell Dovison, and coming on number 13, Luca Durso, and coming off number 8, Cooper Hartpenny, and coming on number 43, Thierry Papadimitriou.
As you will have heard, Campbell Dovison and Cooper Halfpenny, the players to be withdrawn. I mentioned the possibility of some younger and lesser-sided players. Luca Durso is onto the park. He's been a semi-regular feature for South's first team this year. As that ball in behind could be a chance for an Avondale third. Cuba makes it 3 for the Avengers.
Goal for
scything through the South Melbourne defence.
Sian Cuba.
And Sian Cuba had an open net into which he could finish. 3 goals for Avondale, and they're marching towards 3 more points.
Double substitution for Avondale FC, coming off number 13, Yite Towns, and coming on number 10, Manulak Agwek, and coming off number 27, Luca Tavia, and coming on number 23, Christian Trycheski.
In the aftermath of the Sian Cuba goal, Soki Markovsky makes his first couple of substitutions. In the middle of the park, Yite Towns and Luca Tavia both withdrawn, and making way for a couple of first-team regulars in Manny Agwek and Christian Trycheski. And just the timing of that South Melbourne goal didn't even get to finish the point that Thierry Papadimitriou is the other South Melbourne player brought off the bench. Someone who's featured for some of the youth teams for South Melbourne predominantly this campaign. 23 games played for the under-23 squad this year, and now getting his crack at top-level football. So in amongst all that, Blake Carpenter, I think, earning himself a yellow card for that mistimed challenge. And so we've got a number of new faces on the pitch, a number of players towing the line of a yellow card, and a massive opportunity presents itself for Kerr. Kerr makes it 4 for Avondale. He had a paddock of space, and having missed a golden chance in the first half, he wasn't going to miss a second. 4-0, the Avengers now lead. And with South Melbourne making changes to the team, the holes are appearing, and Avondale ready to exploit them.
Double substitution for Avondale FC.
More substitutions coming
for Evelyn Wellsmore.
For the Avengers.
Coming on number 25, Jackson Courtney Perkins. And coming
Change
on
at
for
fullback.
Avondale FC, number 4, Aidan Bryce. And coming on, number 2, Massimo D'Argenio.
So a couple of defensive changes this time for Zoki Markovski, as Massimo D'Argenio and Jackson Courtney Perkins are introduced into the game. And that allows for an early mark to be given to Emlyn Wellsmore. As well as the captain, Aidan Bryce. So Avondale, in rapid fashion, have worked their way out to a 4-0 lead. Same scoreline that we saw in the other league meeting between these teams this campaign at Avenger Park. 4-0 on that day. Well, the concern for South Melbourne is that there's plenty of time for more goals between now and the final whistle. Somewhat unusually, with two 4-0 scorelines as things stand for Avondale. 8 separate goal scorers against South Melbourne in the league this season. 4 individual scorers tonight so far for the Avengers. Here's one of them in Kerr. Threatens the cross, instead holds up the ball before centering it for Courtney Perkins. Courtney Perkins' shot falls the way of Ott, turns and fires. 5-0 Avondale. A wonderful finish from George Ott.
Avondale FC, number 9, George Ott.
And a well-deserved one as well. He's had a really good game. And there was no stopping that one into the top left corner. There might be no stopping Avondale tonight. They're piling on the goals now. 5-0 against South Melbourne. A 5th separate goal scorer as well. And as if it were needed, the rest of the teams preparing for finals have been dealt a serious warning with this Avondale performance, albeit against a far from full-strength South Melbourne team. They are playing with real vim and vigour, Avondale, at the moment. Well, this is always the risk, of course, if you take South Melbourne's approach of blooding the youngsters and giving some players who aren't first-team regulars opportunities from the start and off the bench. That when you play such high-level opposition, they can carve you apart. Courtney Perkins and Zinni continuing with the attacks, and Zoran Markovski is not letting up, bringing on more first-team players from the bench. More energy, more players to keep in a strong rhythm and flow. Of course, Avondale are back in Australia Cup action in midweek. Wednesday night, the 20th of August, they host Brisbane City out at Green Gully Reserve again in the Australia Cup quarter-final. So a real opportunity for Avondale to make it all the way through to the final 4 of the National Cup competition. And they'll be heading into that game with plenty of confidence and in goal-scoring form. A number of their players getting on the score sheet. Here's Menalao for South Melbourne. Spreading it out to Luca Durso, who thought about going himself. In the end, plays it back to O'Sullivan. That release in behind for Nagamatsu. The striker went just a little bit early. And Avondale continue their relentless attacking pursuit. Stefan Zinni, the target of that long ball. Charleston getting there just in time. And the reality is it's tough to argue that Avondale don't deserve such a comprehensive lead. They've been all over South Melbourne after that first 5-10 minutes when South Melbourne were matching them for intensity, you felt. And the quality and the silky passing of Avondale has gradually worn down South Melbourne, and there isn't a whole lot of resistance from a defensive standpoint at the moment. Fairly physical wrestle in the middle of the park. Brayden Spink emerges with the ball. That pass back puts Papadimitriou under pressure. Here's Durso. His pass effectively cut out by Trycheski. Well, mentioned in the first half, any concern about adding to their goal difference, Avondale, just to ensure that if they did in fact win tonight, as they were always likely to do, that their odds of being overtaken by Heidelberg reduce even further. Here's Stefan Zinni looking to make it 6. That one flying wide of the goal. And South Melbourne will make another couple of substitutions now.
Double substitution for South Melbourne FC coming to an end. Number 7, Andy Brennan, and making his South Melbourne debut, number 12, Thomas Killick. And coming off, number 17, Ethan O'Sullivan, and coming on, number 40, Cooper Head.
And as you heard there, joining Andy Brennan in being taken out of this game is the youngster Ethan O'Sullivan, making way for Cooper Head, as well as the debutant Thomas Killick, 18 years of age. Having trained with the senior team this season, really impressed with his performances in both the under-23s and the under-19s team this campaign. Thomas Killick, 14 games in the under-23s, 8 in the under-19s. Someone just 18 years of age. Certainly impressing plenty of the coaching staff at South Melbourne and getting his crack here at senior level. Here he is, Killick, charging down the left wing. He's effectively repelled by Cuba. Now Spink back out to Killick. His touch, though, took it out of play. So into the final 15 minutes here at Lakeside. South Melbourne's final home game of the season. It's looking like it'll end on a fairly dour note. Stefan Zinni could get in behind here as well. His touch took him past the goalkeeper, but almost out of play as well. Glaze keeps it in play. Killick looks central for Menalao. Eventually it works out for Mezzaruni. Saw the idea with the space on the right-hand side. rapidly intercepted by Massimo D'Argenio. Zinni's ball over the top this time. Had too much on it for Agwek. Chance for Killick. Does well with the touch to get past Courtney Perkins initially. Chance here on the edge of the area, fired towards goal. A thunderbolt of an effort from Andrew Mezzaruni and drawing the save from Thomas Manos. It's not something we've seen too often tonight. Really powerful attempt, that one. And will allow Alex Menelau to head over to deliver the corner for South. Ball delivered into the heart of the box. The header narrowly off target. South Melbourne very nearly grabbing themselves a consolation goal tonight. Not quite to be, though, for Hellas as they stare down the barrel of a 5-0 defeat at home. Something they're very much not used to here at Lakeside. First time they've conceded 5 goals in a game this season for all the troubles that they've had. Ball over the top is a good one for Nagamatsu, but Tom Manos, you can see he's eager to keep his clean sheet intact. Racing off his line there. Crossfield ball met by the defensive header, Kamara. His pass out, intercepted by Killick, Mezzaruni. Kamara makes amends. Charging out of the back line and spreading it now to Zinni. Zinni has Ott in the middle, as well as Kerr, but that was a really solid sliding defensive effort from Lucas Inglesi. And with that, South Melbourne will be able to make yet another change.
Substitution for South Melbourne FC, coming off number 23, Morgan Evans. And making his South Melbourne debut, number 67, Shay Gore-Birchmore.
And it's another debutant for South Melbourne. Shay Gore-Birchmore, another player who's featured in the youth teams throughout the campaign. He's brought on to replace Morgan Evans. So getting a real window into the future for South Melbourne here tonight. Avondale looking to take advantage with a 6th. Trajewski shot wide of the post. So a bit of a mixed bag of an evening for South Melbourne. Always good to be giving young players a run and building towards the future of this squad. The scoreline, though, telling a much more sombre story for the home team at this stage. Here is Zinni. Ran into a brick wall in the form of Spink. And the defender deemed to have infringed in blocking off the Avondale attacker. Perhaps even this relentless Avondale attacking machine has toned it down just a step or two. 5 goals to their name. And a big midweek coming up as well. In just, well, around about 72 hours. They'll be hosting Brisbane City in the quarterfinals of the Australia Cup. Before heading towards that final game of the NPL men's season, when they'll be hosting Green Gully. South Melbourne, their last game of the campaign will be at Jack Edwards, where they'll head to take on Oakley Cannons. Still the ball's alive for South as they look to salvage a goal. Massimo D'Argenio, though, able to send it clear. Ball cleared away at the edge of the penalty area. Lofted back forward, but the scorer of the second goal, Carpenter, is there, and he also employs a fairly direct approach. That will find its way all the way through to Charleston. Here is one of the debutants on the ball, Gore Birchmore, 19 years of age. Charging down the left-hand side with Killick just ahead of him. Opts instead to go to Alex Menelau. Menelau attempting to pick out Papadimitriou, but Avondale winning back the ball. Now Carpenter finding Agwek. Returning to the fullback, this is Trycheski. Turns clear of Mezzaruni. Does Christian Trycheski. Charges forward, still going Trycheski all the way just about to the goal line. And the end result is a South Melbourne goal kick. Killick isn't able to beat Kamara, and the combination of Killick and Gore Birchmore bring Kamara to the ground. Referee happy for play to continue as Nagamatsu brought down, but no foul seen by Noah Langarak. Flick on header attempted by Ott towards Zinni. It's awkward to deal with from a defensive viewpoint. And foul called against Cooper Head. Now Trycheski out to Cuba. For what it's worth, the last time that South Melbourne conceded 4 unanswered goals were against Avondale, both of the last 2 times. Of course, the earlier meeting in the league this season and that grand final a couple of years back. The last time they conceded 5 unanswered goals, as they have tonight. Have to go back to the grand final before that, the 2022 one, where Oakley beat them 5-0. Here is Stefan Zinni, looking to make it 6 with his cross. Managed to pick the gap between Ott and goalkeeper Charleston. Flick on towards Killick. Kamara has had plenty to do in these last few minutes. Ball well won back by South Melbourne. Killick releasing Nagamatsu. Back to Killick. And once more, the former Eastern Lion sends the cross in. A little bit ahead of Thierry Papadimitriou. Ball's sent out to the wing where Stefan Zinni is continuing to cause trouble. His ball in is a good one and a really good chance for George Ott to make it 6. His header, though, leaving a little bit to be desired. Stefan Zinni being fairly relentless in tormenting his young fullback opponent, Shagor Birchmore. Courtney Perkins. Now Trycheski. His cross met by the gloves of Jake Charleston. Killick, you can see, only has a mind to get the ball forward. Not really interested in turning around or playing it patiently, conservatively. He's run from one side of the pitch to the other here to pick it up on the right-hand side. Thomas Manos, you might be able to hear his voice still booming even at this late stage, yelling out constant instruction to his teammates, trying to keep them alert. He wants this clean sheet. And that's a clear-cut drag back on Kerr. Results in yet another yellow card being shown. It's been shown a number of times tonight. Players making some last-ditch challenges to try and protect their goal. Braden Spinks, the latest name taken by our central referee tonight. So final few seconds of the 90. We'll see how merciful the fourth official chooses to be with added time. Trycheski works his way out of a tight scenario and uses Courtney Perkins. There'll be 3 more minutes to be played.
3 minutes of added time.
So 3 more minutes for South Melbourne to navigate, for Avondale to maybe make it 6. Outdoing even their very best performances of the campaign. Ball sent all the way back to Tom Manos. So Avondale will go into the final weekend of the NPL Men's Victoria season, 2 points clear of Heidelberg United and plenty of goal difference as well. Guaranteed themselves a top 2 finish now and condemned South Melbourne to their heaviest defeat of the campaign. Their 2 heaviest defeats really, home and away. This is Agwek, just stepped on the ball, which made way for Cooper Head. Now Papadimitriou will find its way out to Killick as Gore Birchmore in support. Goes himself though, Killick. Finds its way all the way through to Durso. Looks to scramble his way clear. It's a good ball as well. Fell to the feet of Killick, who maybe wasn't expecting it. Now Zinni wrestling with Gore Birchmore. It's a good toe in from Shea Gore Birchmore. Makes way for the long range attempt, which is well off target. From Thierry Papadimitriou. Should mention as well, Shea Gore Birchmore, not the only young Gore Birchmore in the South Melbourne ranks. Darley, one of the key features in the South Melbourne women's youth ranks. Also making waves with her performances between the sticks. So may well be a name that features regularly for South Melbourne across both their men's and women's programs in the coming years. But in the present, tonight, very much belonging to Avondale. Commanding performance in the end. They did their damage in a real burst in this second half, between about the 55th and 65th minute. Piling on the goals. And with that full-time whistle, Avondale moved back on top of the NPL Men's Victoria ladder. A 5-0 win at Lakeside. Outdoing even their famous grand final win against South Melbourne a couple years back, as well as their earlier win this campaign at Avenger Park. They've got one hand now on the premiership, do the Avengers. For South Melbourne, it's the end of a tumultuous campaign of football here at Lakeside. A 7th home defeat in NPL Men's Victoria. Most of that damage being done in the early part of the campaign. They'll head into their last game against Oakleigh Cannons, presumably taking a similar approach of giving youngsters some game time against high quality opposition, whilst the Avengers will go into that last weekend against Green Gully looking to seal a 2nd premiership in 3 years, as well as, of course, their midweek Australia Cup quarter-final against Brisbane City. So still a big few weeks to come for Zoki Markovski and his Avondale team. And tonight they proved far too good for South Melbourne at Lakeside. Full-time score to round out round 25 of the NPL Men's Victoria competition. South Melbourne 0, Avondale 5.